me through my life, much like gravity guides me back to earth when I jump. Musical forces propel us forward and guide us. They guide us emotionally and they guide us physically, whether we dance, sway. Theology sits alongside music and nature, a partner, if you will. When music, nature, and theology come together, they form the three pillars of the human experience that I broadly call spirituality, and what I'd like to call for tonight, the spirit of music. The boundaries between music, theology, and nature are often fuzzy in my mind, gently blending together to form the spirit of music. While you can't see it or touch it, the spirit of music is crystal clear to me. It has offered me guidance, grounding, and salvation when I've needed it the most. Here are some songs and stories about how I've come to believe this. So, I came into this world, the bastard child of a dying woman. My father is unknown. My birth mother was in and out of the hospital for the first 10 years of my life. It seemed like we were constantly moving. I spent a chunk of my younger life in the care of Mrs. Mack. Now, my memories of Mrs. Mack are a bit hazy. I was only about 4 years old. But if I had to guess, I would say Mrs. Mack was a fire and brimstone Southern Baptist. She ran a tight ship. I can clearly hear her calling me, "Sit off that Davenport!" Or she'd say, "You ain't getting up till you finish your buttermilk." For the record, I still suffer from buttermilk trauma. I remember her husband's many bowling trophies. "Don't touch those!" But I also remember the constant soundtrack of the gospel music radio station she listened to, and her gentle touch. Mrs. Mack was keenly aware of the spirit of music. She was tough, she was loving, and to this day I can still taste, smell, and hear the experience that was Mrs. Mack. She was my rock at that time, and in these early memories lie my first awareness of the spirit of music. Oh, happy day, oh, happy day, oh, happy day, oh, happy day, when Jesus washed, when Jesus washed, when Jesus washed. She washed the sins away. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy days. Oh, happy days. For as long as I can remember, I've been inexplicably drawn to music. I now realize it was the spirit of music calling me. Nobody around me played music. My mother and I didn't attend concerts. And yet I was driven to sing and perform. By age 6, I would sing for whoever would listen. My repertoire was Winchester Cathedral, or these boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. I even tried to sing Crimson and Clover full on with the tremolo. Crimson and Clover, over. When I was singing, I was lost in a beautiful world. It was my escape. During the last years of my mother's life, we moved to a small college town, Davis, California, where my half-brother Bill lived. I was 10 years old. My brother Bill was 15 years older than me. Bill was best described as an adult toddler, curious, impulsive, self-centered, hard drinking, and brash. Bill loved to read. I hated to read. One thing we did have in common, though, was a deep love of music. During this time, the spirit of music visited me often. I have vivid musical memories of Bill's record collection. It was filled with the Delta blues. And I remember Creedence Clearwater. There was Janis Joplin. She was busted flat in Baton Rouge. There was Cream. And of course, Peter, Paul, and Mary, Pete Seeger, the Singin' This Land, the Simon and Garfunkel, and even Jimi Hendrix wailing away like I'd never heard. Now, I didn't play it this time. I was only listening. But those moments were powerful. To hear that music, to look at those record covers was amazing. I went to a number of San Francisco protests with my brother Bill and his roommates during this time. These protests were probably my first real spiritual revelations. The songs we sung, the beauty of Golden Gate Park, it all touched me in a way that I never felt. The spirit of music was definitely there. Suddenly, I had a purpose, a cause, a belief, and an engagement with questions of morality. Before these protests, I was simply surviving my childhood. But when I sang those songs, I suddenly understood there were forces beyond me colliding inside my 10-year-old mind, causing me a profound spiritual awakening. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. 'Cause all we are saying is let's give peace a chance. I remember singing these songs like it was just yesterday. In the last few weeks of my mother's life, I remember feeling so lost and alone. My mother was in and out of the hospital for the last time. A woman named Joy was staying with me as my caregiver in my mother's absence. I had been permanently assigned to after-school detention because I was so far behind in school. I remember pushing my feet up against the legs of my desk like runner's blocks, waiting for the bell to ring. And when that bell rang, bam, I was out the door like lightning. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. It's no wonder my teachers thought I was just a horrible, undisciplined child. Behavior like that. Joy gave me a Sears Silvertone guitar. It only had 4 strings on it. I think the spirit of music chose Joy to be the deliverer. I certainly didn't ask for the guitar. What I do know about that guitar is it appeared in my life just when I needed it the most. One day while I was outside under the giant mulberry tree, picking the strings of my guitar, like I always did, I can still hear that to this day. My brother Bill pulled up on his motorcycle. He told me my mother had died and that he had to go. Joy wasn't there yet. The spirit of music visited me that day. I remember so clearly feeling the power of nature as the heat of the sun combined with the sound of the breeze rustling the trees, the sound of my 4 strings washed over me as I sat there, tears periodically rolling down my cheeks. Eventually, Joy arrived home. My mother died in June. It was hot. My brother Bill was 26. I was 10. We were stuck with each other. Within a week or so, my life was totally upended. We moved to the San Juan Islands off the coast of the state of Washington to live in the woods. We lived in tents. No utilities, no running water, just amazingly beautiful woods that extended down to the shoreline. The spirit of music visited me again, this time sending one of Bill's friends to deliver me the folk singer's guitar guide, which I still have, and the 2 missing strings from my guitar. Now, when speaking of music, I often say you don't choose it, it chooses you. Alone, deep in the woods, surrounded by the sounds of the ravens flying overhead and crashing waves in the distance, the spirit of music chose me. I actually read the book. The songs are still with me. Skip to my loo, lost my partner, what do I do? The worried man blues, it takes a worried man to sing a worried song. Down the valley, John Brown's body, this land is your land, the wildwood flower. All these songs just filled me as a 10-year-old in the woods, all alone. The weather turned cold. We rented a shack of a house in town right across the street from the school. We had running water, but still no electricity or gas. That Christmas concert, the school Christmas concert, I played What Child Is This for the school Christmas concert. I sang and played it. What child is this who laid to rest on Mary's lap is singing? I know the spirit of music was guiding me because to be able to play and sing after only a few months of self-instruction was truly miraculous. There's no other explanation for it as far as I can see. After living with my brother for a year, he sent me back to Davis for the summer. That summer I turned 11. I bought my first Steppenwolf record. My first record, Steppenwolf. Live. It had Draft Resistor on it, The Pusher, Born to be Wild. I must have played that record 1,000 times that summer. The spirit of music came to visit me again, this time teaching me to listen. I learned to play Born to be Wild by ear. As summer came to an end and it was time for me to return home, I got what I call the letter. It was from my brother Bill. He explained he couldn't have me return to live with him, and so I was to become a ward of the court and be put up for adoption. I was devastated. I was filled with a numb silence. There was no music. And then I sat in my room and I played. Get your motor running, head on the highway, looking for adventure, and whatever comes my way. Hey darling, gonna make it happen, take the world in its love's embrace, fire all of your guns and all at once explode into space. At that moment, my life could have gone a number of directions. I flashed back to running out of that 5th grade classroom. Luckily, the family I was staying with told me I could stay with them. I believe the spirit of music lifted me once again in that moment from the numb silence of despair. I reframed and I moved forward into an unknown future. Throughout high school and junior high, I practiced and I practiced some more. When I wasn't practicing, I worked to pay for my music lessons and my guitar. When my first real girlfriend, Abby, dumped me hard, I spent a week lying on the couch listening to B.B. King live at Cook County Jail. The thrill is gone, the thrill is gone away. How blue can you get? Every day I have the blues. Please accept my love. Those songs were the songs that got me through that moment of complete and utter despair. From there, my musical journey became fast and furious. With the spirit of music by my side, at age 15, I was playing in both the university and high school jazz bands. I also had a good paying job with a successful disco band. This led to me moving out on my own at age 17. The spirit of music and I have been taking care of each other ever since. Once I was chosen by the spirit of music, it was never an option, it was a destiny. The spirit of music has been a vital part of my life through the joys and sorrows. It has taught me creativity, humility, perseverance, cooperation, and problem solving. Through music, I've experienced deep music connections and incredible moments of transcendence. Often these moments of transcendence have come when I'm playing at outdoor music festivals. Playing music surrounded by nature is when all the forces come together in a beautiful harmony. I've been so lost in these moments that I've left the physical world and entered an altered state of consciousness. It is an out-of-body spiritual experience. Sometimes when I return from this altered state, I'm not even sure what song I'm playing or where I am. I have no name for it, but when I speak of this to other musicians, they nod their heads and say, "Oh yeah, that's happened to me too." I think the altered state also happens to listeners as well. So that's my story. That's my relationship with the spirit of music. Spirit of music is with us through many of life's most serious and joyous moments. When we celebrate, mourn, worship, protest, hunt, and even battle, the spirit of music accompanies us. It provides us an inspiration, comfort, and guidance when we need it most. The power of music is undeniable. It is by nature spiritual. I hope you've been touched by the spirit of music. I know I have. Thank you.
Brian, thank you so much for sharing yourself with all of us tonight. I'm going to remove your spotlight. And we have a number of people with us. So I'm going to invite you, if you have a comment or a question, feel free to put that in the chat and I will lift that up, or you can raise your virtual or real hand and I will call on you. Jane, feel free to unmute yourself.
Brian, I was wondering about your spiritual musical journey with Lori.
Well, Lori is certainly my partner in life. Music is something we share in listening for sure, but not in playing. But we sing together. We definitely sing together. We do a fabulous "This Little Light of Mine."
Oh, we could use it at church very soon.
What's that, Lori?
You can tell them how you had second thoughts about marrying me because I couldn't name the four people.
Oh. Lori is saying I should share that I had second thoughts about marrying her because it's not true. I never had second thoughts about marrying her. But I joke because a few days, within probably a week of us before we got married, Lori asked me two questions. One was I said something about Jimi Hendrix, and she said, "Who is Jimi Hendrix?" And the other was she asked me one day, how many Beatles were there? And this is these. Now I have to say, Lori's story is as scruffy-muffin as mine is. She grew up on a farm where there were two kinds of music, country and western. So it was not out of anything more than we all only know what we can know. And if I would have asked, she could have asked me about a Hank Williams song and I wouldn't have recognized it. She would have known every one. So we all know something different.
Yeah.
Rosie.
Brian, thank you so much. It seems like your experiences when you were a child, you you showed such resilience, and you have built up so much resilience as a result of your experiences. So I wonder how this, last year was for you, kind of relative to all of what you've been through. How did it feel, relatively speaking? And also, what were some of your thoughts at the most difficult times? What kinds of things were most difficult for you last year and currently because of the pandemic?
Well, I know one thing that sticks out, which is directly related to music and human connection and all those things that I think were so the transition from teaching privately to teaching on Zoom was really difficult for me because because of the time delay. We can't play that all the things that we normally do as musicians were suddenly not available. And so even though I could see them, and then of course there are all the technical challenges, but I would get so frustrated with like trying to communicate, like, no, put your third finger, no, your other third finger, it's like that, that, that I would find my anxiety levels just like going through the roof. And I remember at one point, and I would get kind of snappy with my students, like, just, and nothing that they were doing wrong, just the whole challenge of the whole situation. And one night Lori said to me, honey, you just seem like you're really, like you need to chill out. Like it's just, and at that moment I just decided, you know what, I really need to reframe. And I gave myself a few minutes between lessons. And I also just made the conscious effort to, instead of focusing on trying to teach like I've always teach, to simply find the joy in the moment. And that's been probably my biggest lesson, is just to try and find the joy. And that happens now that I'm teaching in the schools and I'm come up against so many obstacles. So to me, that's been the thing I've learned in COVID, is to just learn to accept it's not going to be the same. But what's most important is to find the joy, to connect, even if it's like this. I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's definitely the one that sticks out for me.
Brian, there's a question here in the chat from Doug. It says, do different genres of music affect different parts of your spirit? And if so, how do they contrast and complement each other?
Oh boy. Well, that's very interesting. Well, actually, I have a friend he was the music critic at the Sacramento Bee, which is a pretty well-known paper in California because it's the capital paper there. And he was also a songwriter. So he had word and music in his vocabulary, in his wheelhouse. And when he was being interviewed, they asked him, well, what's more important to you, music or the words? And he said, well, it's actually when they come together and the third thing that appears. And I always thought that was that spiritual thing. That was that, you can read the words and you can hear the music, but when the words and music come together, this third thing happens. And so to me, things that have lyrics and music usually touch me more than just instrumental music. And then stylistically, there's sort of two really broad levels of music in my mind. One is composer driven, where somebody creates the music, notates it, and passes it out for others to interpret and play, which is generally the classical model. And then there's music where the person who has created it delivers it. And that's usually the singer-songwriter type person or the band that's created it. And probably they touch me differently for sure. One feels like a much more direct source, like I'm drinking from the well with the songwriter. But the other is sort of an amazing display of like watching birds fly and move together. And that is also a spiritual thing, but it's a very different thing. So yeah, they definitely affect me differently. When I hear an orchestra play, that sound cannot. I always tell everybody, if you've never gone to an orchestra, you should go just to sit and listen to them tune, if nothing else. It's like, it sounds like the angels or something. It's like, so, but it's definitely different because, and I often joke that I'm devolving, that that the more I learn about music, the more I can really appreciate the simplicity of a two-chord song. So I don't know if that answers the question, but definitely there's a difference.
Thank you. Another question here in chat from Dot. She asks, can you explain why beautiful music so often reduces me to tears?
Oh boy, I wish I could explain that. Um, I think it's that thing. I think it's that and even if it's not with words, that just that. So I, at one point in my talk somewhere, I had a little thing about music and math, and that music is fundamentally very based on nature and frequency and harmonics and overtones interacting. And there is something, it's no accident that we have a 12 tone system. That this is all based on nature. And this is where I put this nature and music and theology, to me, all seem to be very interconnected. And so to answer your question about why does it make you cry, I think what I'd written down that I think is pretty much the essence of it is that the vibrations that occur in music come together in a certain way, and our ear is very in tune to that and processes it and then assigns it an emotion or spiritual context. And it's what triggers us, but it's based in harmony. It's the same reason that all the leaves on the alders or aspens resonate flutter at the same speed. I think that when we hear that or witness that, we're touched by it and it can make us cry. I tell my students, you'll know when you've done it well when you can make them cry. That's your goal.
I really wish we could talk to you all night, Brian. I've really enjoyed your presentation tonight. Unfortunately, we only have one time for probably one more question. Rosie.
Brian, you've talked about how the spirit and the energy of music has come to you. Are you, in being a teacher, are you aware of the moments where it becomes really transcendent and you are giving that gift to a student? And maybe could you give us an anecdote about that?
Wow. Well, I don't think it's so much that I'm aware of when I give it, because uh, uh, it's always surprising me what it was I said that they connect with. What I am very aware of, though, is when they receive it, and when they come back to me and say, "Listen to this," or I get a note from a student saying, "I just want you to know that you made a difference, and now when I sing to my child, I pick up the guitar and play." You know, it doesn't have to be that they were great musicians or that was their career. Just somehow it stuck with them. Those are when I know that I've given the gift. It's not so much my talented students; it's the ones who just take it with them, and at some point say, "Guess what? I still carry it around in my pocket." And so that's it.
That's lovely. Thank you again, Brian.
You bet. Thank you all for listening. I'm so glad I could share this moment with you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Brian.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
You're most welcome.
This was great. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much from Jerry and Ann.
Thank
Yes,
you. Thank you.